There we go. We are live. So, hello and welcome everyone to the JVology show. We are on episode number 50, and it is a auspicious event because for episode number 50, I have a very dear friend and brilliant person, Danny Innie, with us. And a couple of things before we dive on in. I was going to set up the show a little bit. So for those of you who don't know, this is the JVology show, and it is a program where my brand, JVology, the perfect mix of people, fun, and profit, where we do our best to bring the greatest creators, the greatest thinkers, people who can make a monumental difference in your life and in your business, onto the show to have a little discussion and to share with us, number one, what they know. Number two, how you can take their skills, abilities, and talents and apply it to your business. And it also almost always includes an epic and astounding free gift. So a couple of things, if you don't know, JVology, we are a joint venture community where we do entrepreneurial training. We support people with live events like JVology Live. It's coming up June 11th through 14th online, the comfort of your own home. We have the joint venture success system, digital programs. We do done-for-you work. We do coaching. We do consulting. We have our global lounge where the community of joint venture partners comes together from all over the world. So if you can think about it in that domain, we do it. And of course, we will make sure that you get some links over in the chat window to find out more about those things as we go along. But the first thing that I've got to do is this. I got to remind you, Danny is here, and he is one of the most brilliant people in the world of course creation, and he's willing to answer questions. He's willing to serve and support you in connecting the dots. But to do that, you have to be over on the broadcast page. We share this all over God's green earth, as you well know, but you have to be on the broadcast page for us to be able to see your notes. So you can click on the video. Sometimes you got to click on just a little J Fazette above the video, and that will take you over to the broadcast page. When you get there, say hello, tell us who you are, tell us where you're from, and then we are going to serve you incredibly well. Okay, one last thing, Danny, before I get you to give us the review is I'm going to play our little show intro. And after our show intro, we are going to get on with finding out more about, come on, little camera, there we go. Finding out more about what you are up to. All right, brother, we are back. And so Danny, tell us like the 5,000-foot view of who you are and who you serve and what you have been incredibly busy creating.
Sure. And first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's a privilege. So the really 5,000-foot view, as you said, is my name is Danny Innie. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Miracy. We've been around for about 10 years. I have about 20 people on the team. We serve thousands of students, hundreds of thousands of people who follow our work and the stuff that we put out. And it's all about helping coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, and experts take their expertise and turn it into an online course business. That's what we do. I've been doing it since, these days you can open a browser window and you can't help but bump into someone who's teaching you how to build online courses. I've been doing it since before it was cool. I've trained literally thousands of people. We're directly and indirectly responsible for tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of course sales over the past decade. So that's what we do.
So, and you are correct that, and in fact, just since the pandemic started, I swear I have seen 4 people who I didn't know they did anything around courses launch their I'll help you build a course business, which I think has been quite entertaining. So you have a very specific methodology, those sorts of things, but just talk to us about what you saw a decade ago, and I think it was originally called the Course Builders Formula or the Course Builders.
Well, for a long time, our flagship program was called the Course Builders Laboratory, and we've had many thousand people go through it. Yeah.
Yes. How many thousands?
Almost 4,000.
That is amazing. So I'm curious about a little bit of the inception story of how you saw the importance and the significance of courses, how you oriented your entire business around serving that particular marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't start out in the world of online courses. If you go further into my backstory, in 2007, I tried to build a big software company. So, we built prototypes and raised money and did all that stuff. And we had some good early success. Experts loved it. The kids loved it. but I was a very young, very inexperienced CEO in what in hindsight is an incredibly complicated industry. And the timing was terrible. By the time I figured out what I needed to do and how to get things going, it was August of 2008. I reworked the plan. Then September of 2008 hits, the markets crashed. It was game over. Everything fell apart. The bottom came out from under us. And I didn't want to tell my investors, who were friends and family, that their money was gone. So I took the losses on personally. I walked away from that with about $250,000 in personal debt. And anyone who's been through something like that knows that, like, that kind of business implosion, it's not just devastating financially, which it was, that sucked, but it's also devastating emotionally, right? It's a lot like going through a really bad breakup. And after you go through a really bad breakup, you're not ready to start dating again right away. You need to start, like, licking your wounds for a bit. And so, I still had bills, I had rent to pay. And I was like, well, what can I do that doesn't involve raising a whole bunch of money or hiring a big team or anything like that? Because I was a little bit, once bitten, twice shy. And so I said, I know what I can do. I'll start a blog. I'll teach some of the things I've learned along the way, and I'll kind of go from there. And I did, and I stumbled onto some marketing strategies that worked really well, and I got a lot of exposure. And people started coming to me and saying, Danny, can you teach me how to do what you're doing? And I said no, because my head was not in the right place. And it took me a couple months to wake up to the fact that when the market says they want something, you better damn well listen. So finally I got around to it.
Time out just for a second. So that, by the way, is jewel number one, if you're not already clear, because time and again, I work with people that want to create a course for them, not for the market. And it's like, good Lord, it's got to be the market. Anyway, so just underscore that one, my friends.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So you want to do what the market is looking for. So people are asking me, can you teach this? And, I'd flirted with the idea of online courses earlier in my career. I'd built some stuff that was for me rather than for them. Nobody bought it. And so I was very gun shy. And so I thought, I don't think anybody's going to buy it, but everyone keeps asking, so I'll give it a shot. And I said, I'm going to launch this pilot course, which means I'm going to do it live. It's going to be rough around the edges. And this was just my way of hedging my bets. I didn't want to build a whole course in case nobody wanted it. And I figured maybe I'd have 5-10 people who want it. So I did a launch. I announced that I'm doing it. And people who've been following my work for a long time know that I have this bad habit of doing big promotions on holidays because I'm just oblivious and I don't know what is going on. So I don't remember what the holiday weekend was, but it was some holiday weekend. And I announced the pilot on, I think it was the Friday. By Saturday, we had sold out. By Sunday, we were oversubscribed. By Monday, lots of people were really mad because I had closed the doors and it was a holiday weekend and they missed it. So it was a whole fiasco. But I ended up bringing in 100 people into this pilot. And that course went on to do really well. In the first year, we enrolled 1,000 people. And this was me kind of coming out of nowhere. I went from 0 to 6 figures in that year. And so that was my first online course. And it was a good online course. People did the work, they got results, and they started coming back to me and saying, now that I did this, people have this new thing that here's my new problem, right? I was teaching people how to write for major blogs. And so they did it. They got featured on all the biggest blogs on the internet. There's hardly a major blog on the internet that a student of mine hasn't written for. And they started coming back and basically saying, now that I can get a post on a major blog, does that mean I know everything I need to know to build my online business? And I would say, well, no, of course not. Why would you think that? There's so much more to it.
Yes.
And so they kept asking. So I launched a second course. And that second course, we did hundreds of thousands of dollars. When we launched it, we did a couple $1 million over the next year. Big growth, big success. And a year later, people started coming back to me. I'm hearing a bit of an echo. I don't know if other people are getting that.
You know what? I'm fiddling with my new mic. And if that came back through, I'm trying to not have to wear my headphones and use the new mic. But let me just change
You do look very stylish. You look very stylish.
It's at this moment in time, Danny, it's just a prop that I clearly don't know how to use.
But hey, it looks really good. But anyway, so, we roll out the second course, millions of dollars in revenues, thousands of students. It does phenomenally well. And they go through the program, they see results, and they come back to me. And I start having a lot of students coming back to me and saying, Danny, I've taken a lot of online courses. I've bought a lot of online courses, and I never get results. I never go through it. I never do the work. I try, and I'm not successful. But when I take your courses, I get results. Can you teach me how to do that? And that was in 2013. And in 2013, we rolled out our first pilot of a course where we worked with people on how to build and sell their own online courses, kind of building off of the fact that I've always had an interest in education, and we've had multiple instructional designers working on the team. And like, these are things that most businesses in our industry just don't invest in. And so in 2013, we kind of made the pivot into this space. And I've become increasingly captivated by the potential and promise of online education. You know, I like to tell this story. You can sit in front of your computer and watch videos on TED for, you know, the whole day. And you come away feeling so inspired. It's like, look at all these amazing things we know how to do. Look at all these amazing problems we know how to solve. But then you close your laptop, you go out into the world, you look around and you're like, where the hell is all of it? And there's this huge gap between the things that we conceptually know to solve, but the actual solutions we do. And that gap is very much in our ability to transfer not just knowledge, not just ideas. There's a really important distinction there, right? A TED Talk is a transfer of information. And information is great for expanding our horizons about what's possible. It's great for integrating new knowledge into existing expertise. But it's not great for imparting competence, right? We don't get good at things by watching videos. And in order to create real things in the world, we need to get good at things. And that's where a meaningful online education experience can really play a big role. And so the more I've been involved in this world, the more inspiring I've found it. And it's just, you know, been this, you know, reinforcing cycle. And it's been, I'll say it's been really frustrating to me to see how, as the space heats up, lots of people jump in saying, you know, I've done this for 5 minutes, I've had a modicum of some result, and so, you know, let me teach you how to do it. It's a bit of a bicycle shed problem, right? If you tell your neighbor that, you know, I'm building a nuclear reactor, your neighbor's going to say, okay, good luck with that. You know, I've got nothing to add to that. But if you tell them I'm building a bicycle shed, right? Because a bicycle shed feels like a simple thing. Even if they've never had anything to do with this, they're like, oh yeah, I have tips for you, right? It's one of those things where, you know, when something feels familiar enough, you think you have expertise that you don't. And there is a real gap, right? You can flush a lot of toilets. That doesn't make you a plumber. And it's the same kind of thing. You can have seen a lot of online courses. That doesn't make you an expert in this field. And it's an important thing to do well, especially in the current age.
So let's talk about that for a brief moment or two, because you know, I have 33 years experience in the personal transformation and personal development space, and the bicycle shed process is quite fascinating, because it's the same as somebody reads a personal development book and created a new result in their life, and they're suddenly an expert, and it's like, oh, great. So I have had shared similar thoughts. So what is from your perspective, what's the biggest, let's call it repeating error or blind spot that the builders of bicycle sheds keep missing, that you have solved? I know you've done it. I like that you called that old program the laboratory, because it really was. It was like you were testing, you were trying, you were like you have more data about this than perhaps any other single human being that I know. So what's like one of those just simple, obvious, you know, things that people keep missing?
Well, so one of the very obvious things, you touched on it already, is that people build their courses based on what they want to teach, based on what they think people should know, instead of starting with what do people want. And then, you know, instructional designers call this backward integrated design. But you essentially want to say, you know, when all this is said and done, what do I want them to know? What do I want them to know how to do? Right. And in ask that question, you want to dig a layer deeper. It's not just what should they know, what should they be able to do, but like, how well do I need them to know it? Because that will determine a lot about how you construct your learning experience. If you tell me, you know, Danny, can you teach a course on Hamlet? Right. I'll say, well, it depends. You know, if you want me to give you the gist of the story, I can probably do that in 5 or 10 minutes. Right. If you want me to teach you to recite it, that's going to take a lot longer. If you want me to teach you to perform it, that'll take even more. And honestly, maybe someone else should deliver that course who's better qualified than I am.
So again, I'm going to pause for a moment as well, because one of the foundations of joint ventures for us is this idea of, we call it upstream, downstream partners. We teach it in great depth and detail at JVology Live. It's like our upstream partners cause the problem we solve. Our downstream partners solve the problems we create. And when we put it in that perspective. But one of the key pieces to that is to really work in a collaborative manner, is to recognize that there are, in many cases, people who do this way better. And why don't we just build them on that process? So if we tell ourselves the truth of what's going on and what our skill set is and what it is not, and build that tribe around us, then it's like, wait a second, I should be interviewing Danny about setting up a course. Like, I've done a bunch, but I'm not you, and I don't have that data, which is why we're having this conversation. So I think that's a point that people miss over and over again, is what is the thing that I should be doing? And what are the things I should be sending out to somebody else with a great JV arrangement? Anyway,
No,
it's a
I
big
think
question.
it's a really good insight, because on that same note, I mean, I've done thousands of joint ventures over the last decade, and every time I talk to you about it, I learn something new. So you really want to ask yourself, like, am I the best person to be doing this? Because part of it is just, finding your niche of where you can really shine in the market. But the other part of it is, like, you don't want to go into a market picking a fight with an 800-pound gorilla, because you're going to lose. Right. And that's a really important thing. So the other big mistake I see people make coming into this space is, so a little bit of background for this in terms of what creates a meaningful learning experience. There are 3 steps in a learning journey. The first step is consumption. That's where you watch the video, listen to the audio, read the text, whatever. You're consuming the new information. And that's where most online courses focus. But real learning takes place in the second and third step. The second step is application. I take what I learned and I do something with it. And that can be theoretical application, exercises, worksheets, etc., or practical application. I'm going to reach out to 5 people today and start, beginning joint venture relationships, doing real things in the world. And then the third step is integration, and that happens through feedback, right? As to what is working, what is not, how I need to correct. And that feedback can be a natural consequence of what I'm trying to do, right? If I'm trying to learn how to skateboard, then the feedback comes from concrete and gravity. Or if
gravity is a bitch of a teacher.
She really is. Or it can be more nuanced, coming from an instructor, a coach, a peer, a reflective process. Right? So the other big mistake that people make is they say, I want to create a course that is totally hands-off. It's going to be just the consumption piece. It's going to be information. It'll be inexpensive. It's my ticket to passive income. And that's a big mistake, because it's that same, who's the 800-pound gorilla? And there are a lot of 800-pound gorillas playing in that information-only space, right? And you can find them on Udemy and on Masterclass and on Creative Live, etc. So one of my favorite examples of this is, let's talk about screenwriting, right? Let's say you want to be a screenwriter, you're interested in screenwriting. So, if you want to get a really good $100 course with just the information, you go to Masterclass, you take Aaron Sorkin's course on screenwriting. Aaron Sorkin wrote A Few Good Men, he wrote The West Wing, and there's great information there. It's entertaining, but I'm not going to come out of it a substantially better screenwriter, right? Because when it comes time to practice and get feedback, who's going to help me? Not Aaron Sorkin. So if you're the screenwriting instructor who says, I want to create my own $100 course, I'm going to go head-to-head with Aaron Sorkin's celebrity and credibility and Masterclass's distribution, you're screwed. But if you say, I'm going to go downstream, right? All the people who, I don't have to tell them that online courses are a thing. Aaron Sorkin's done the heavy lifting for me. They've gone through his course. They're like, now where can I go to really get good at this? Me, right? That's the opportunity. That's the other big mistake I see people making. They see, I see a lot of online courses up there that are like, $100 on Udemy or Masterclass. That must be the way to go. And it's like, no, that's the way to go if you are Aaron Sorkin, if you're Lady Gaga, if you're, playing at that caliber and you have that reach and influence. But otherwise, you want to go with a much lower volume, higher dollar kind of structure.
And so number one, I love that example, and a little bit of contextual awareness makes a huge difference. Let's talk more about passive income, because there's I'm trying to ask the question without sounding like a complete judgmental asshole, but the truth is I'm a little bit of a judgmental asshole because I have to. So much of the marketing is create a course, then sit on the beach and frolic in the water with your hot husband, wife, whatever, and the money will come pouring in as you sit on the beach doing nothing, because that's so simple and easy. Anybody could do it. Now, I tried to keep the sarcasm out of my, but I can't. But what is your view of the positioning of your online course is your ticket to passive income and freedom for the rest of your life?
So I like I like the question a lot, and I respect the skepticism, and I agree with you. But let's unpack. Yes, it strains credulity for any reasonable person. But the challenge is that there are a lot of seemingly very successful people out there selling this passive income idea. And most reasonable people who hear it, they say, it doesn't seem plausible, but I can't really put my finger on why. And so if all these experts say it's a real thing, maybe I should trust them. So it isn't realistic, but let's talk about why, because most people don't understand how to connect those dots. So if we want passive income, there are two ingredients. How do we make passive income? First, you need something inexpensive that you're selling, right? It has to be inexpensive, because if it's not inexpensive, it's not passive, right? Something expensive is work to sell and work to deliver. So it's got to be inexpensive. And you also need to sell a large volume of it, because if you're selling something inexpensive and there's not much volume, then even if it's passive, it's not much income. So passive income is low price, high volume. Now, the challenge is, where are you going to get that volume? Right? How are you going to get all those massive number of customers, right? There's always a cost to acquire a customer. So a really easy back of the napkin math that you can do is take the retail price of your course, divide by 3. So let's say it's a $100 course. So $33, 1/3 of that will go towards fulfillment. So maybe you need to hire a part-time support person to answer people's questions, or you send them a thank you card in the mail or whatever. You have $33 per student you can allocate to fulfilling on the experience. Another $33 goes towards contribution profit, so covering your overhead and eventually ending up in your pocket if there's enough volume. And the last third goes towards customer acquisition. And that's either hard or soft costs that you can incur to get the customer. So you can pay for ads, or you can spend your time, which has a dollar value. Now, the challenge with these low dollar courses is that it's really hard to acquire customers at that price. Right? Like imagine, for example, I want to sell my course, so I'm going to run ads on Facebook. So I'm going to get leads for $5, which is probably optimistic. And I'm going to convert 1 out of 50 of those leads into my course, which is probably also optimistic. Right? But do the math. Then I've just spent $250 on a course that I said I can afford to spend $33 to get a customer. So the math doesn't work. It's very hard to make the math work on these low dollar courses. Now, where does the passive income idea come from? It comes from people who have an unfair advantage, right? Because that math breaks down if you have 200,000 people on your email list, because you don't need to pay to acquire the customer anymore. You've got them, right? The math breaks down if you own the front page of Google, right? It breaks down if you have the distribution muscle of Masterclass behind you. Right, so there are unfair advantages that allow you to get around it. It breaks down if you've got multiple best-selling books and a million viewership TED Talks, right? Because you've got all these things working against you to kind of twist the math. But unless you have these unfair advantages, the math just doesn't work. So the idea that a lot of people come with is, I want to stop trading time for money. That's a fantasy unless you have one of these unfair advantages. What's a reality is the possibility of trading a lot less time for a lot more money. And that's pretty appealing.
Hell yes. And that at least is grounded, like it is the truth that we can gain some leverage through it, right? Like, but I just get a little carried away or a little judgmental at some of the marketing. But I do love how articulately you placed where the math breaks down and where it is possible and where it's incredibly unlikely. And I just really think it's important for people to know the truth of that. Like, can it happen? Hell yes. So I love that. Now, can we back up to some of the numbers that you shared for a brief moment?
Yeah, sure.
Which one? So the third, because I actually think that as a, let's call it paper napkin profits, that's actually a really solid and great way to think about this, because again, I think in the world of marketing, it's like it's $100 program, which means that because it's just a username and a password, that ta-da, I'm going to make $97 of that $100. So can you talk to us a little bit about where because I know that that's not just made up. I know that that's based on research and thousands of people doing these programs. Can you just give us a little more depth about that so that people can really wrap their head and heart around it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it is and it is back of the napkin math, right? Like that's not
Yep.
the exact number breakdown for every business. And, different kinds of businesses, obviously it'll be very different, but in the online
Mm-hmm.
course world, by and large, it's a really good starting point, right? If you're doing
Mm-hmm.
like a quick gut check of does my business model make sense, that math works
Yep.
very well. And it comes down to the fact that you need to invest something to support the student, right? To create the
Yep.
student experience. And the more you have to work with, the better an experience you can create, right? That's why, if you're selling $1,000, $2,000 course, there's probably going to be some support involved. There might be a coach, there might be
Mm-hmm.
resources that you send, there might be gifts in the mail, whatever. And that's fine. You
Yep.
can justify that because you have the resources, right? The same goes to contribution profit. The same goes to acquiring the customer. But
Mm-hmm.
there's an issue, I think, in the online courses world where everyone loves the idea of leverage. They love the idea of scalability, but they're thinking about it wrong. They're thinking about
Okay.
scalability like pretending they're a software company, right? So if I'm running
Mm-hmm.
Zoom, right? Zoom literally, this happened last month with the pandemic. They went from 10 million monthly active users to 200 million monthly active users, and I'm
Good
sure it was
Lord.
crazy times at Zoom, but like it doesn't cost them anything to incrementally add a user. I mean, maybe some support costs and servers, but by and large, you add 100 people, it doesn't change anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not how it is with online courses. That's not the model for scalability. The model we want to
Right.
think about is scalability like Zappos, right? Zappos is a very human intensive business. And it's
Yes.
a huge, huge and profitable business. That's okay. Because scalability is not about can you add a bajillion new customers without any effort or cost. Scalability is if I look at what it costs me to support each customer, can I do it profitably times a bajillion customers? That's real scalability. And that's how we need to think about it.
And that's a very good distinction because um, talk to me as well about so the three levels of the three levels of learning. This idea of how much time. Like, do you have any sort of calculations or ideas around the number of students and the depth of the complexity and how much support time should be involved to help them get past consumption and into application and really creating results?
It's a really good question. It's a really it depends kind of question.
Yeah.
Um, it depends obviously on the subject matter and the complexity of what you're teaching, but it also depends a lot on the quality of execution. Um, and this is where a lot of course creators who they go in this direction, like I want to create an amazing transformative experience. That's what I'm trying to do, right? They really mess it up because
Mm-hmm.
they try to put everything in, but they don't do a good job of it. And if you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to help every student get to every result, but you do a lousy job of it, you're going to spend your whole life answering support tickets, right? And
Yes.
so what you need to do is run a pilot version of the course, right? Over
Mm-hmm.
deliver on support, over deliver on access, work with 10, 20, 50, 100 students, not a huge number, and keep track of all the things that trip them up, keep track of all the challenges, keep track of all the questions. And you'll see that all of
Yep.
those things fall into two groups. There are the things that are unique to each student, right? I need this input on my particular unique situation. And that's where you really want to resource it well to help them succeed. And then
Yep.
there's the stuff where it's like 20 people are asking the same question. And it's like, for that, just
Mm-hmm.
explain it better the first time, right? If 20 people can't find their password, like if 20 people
So,
can't find their password, just fix it so it's easy to find their password, right? So a
mm-hmm.
lot of people's process through a learning journey comes down to the balance between momentum and friction. So they come in with a certain amount of momentum, and there are things that can
Yep.
add momentum. I experience a win, I feel successful, I get a result.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are lots of things that create friction along the way, right? There is path friction. I can't remember my
Yep.
password. Where do I log in? There is environmental friction, which is, I'm trying to work, but, my kid is, drawing on. I keep getting commented that people are saying, did you let your kids draw on the wall? This is all a whiteboard, so they know this is the only wall they're allowed to draw on. But I'm distracted by this thing in my environment, so I can't concentrate right now. Or it could be
Mm-hmm.
cognitive, or it could be emotional. There's a lot of things that create friction along the way. So
Yes.
what you want to do is iterate your process so that you take out as much friction, you add as much momentum, and if you do a good job of that, you can show up and create a good experience with support. What you can't do
Yep.
is try to make up for a lousy course experience with support, because that becomes cost prohibitive.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So let's I want to blend sort of two questions together that I'd like to ask you. And one of which is, and I think we've already touched on it a little bit, one of which is, how has the current health crisis and the pandemic changed the landscape for online courses? And sort of in conjunction with that, and obviously there's lots of starter-uppers, but how has it changed the landscape? And does it present new opportunities to build courses into existing businesses? Because it seems to me that, all this talk about pivot is that this seems like a pretty simple, intelligent way to ground a company, redirect a company, blaze a path for a pivot that might make a monumental difference for people.
Well, it's a big question, and I think where courses fit really well is that for a lot of business, they are a really good venue for diversification, right? For creating a hedge.
Yep.
So, a lot of businesses are really struggling right now, obviously. Businesses that have a course element to what they do, they're seeing demand explode because everyone's at home, everyone's got time, everyone has learning needs that continue to exist, and yet, no other way of getting them fulfilled. So people selling courses are seeing their business go through the roof right now. In terms of the impact of this current health crisis on the landscape in general, I think it's really important to emphasize this. I don't think it's changing anything. I think it's accelerating changes that were already happening. Right? And that's a really, really important distinction. It's not different, it's just faster, right? Because online courses are still a relatively new thing. They're just now creeping into the mainstream. And the adoption of something new is always prevented by two forces. Basically, legitimate reasons, meaning it's not as good as the alternatives, right? I don't want to meet you on Zoom because having a drink with you over Zoom is not as much fun as having a drink with you in person. Like, that's a legitimate reason. It doesn't work as well. And then there's just inertia. Right? I don't want to why would I do a call with you on Zoom when I can do it on the phone? What is this Zoom thing? Right? It's like that kind of inertia. And that inertia is what actually prevents a lot of people from adopting new things. Well, because of this pandemic, all of the inertia has just been swept away. Everyone's been shoved into the deep end of the pool. It's like, you thought it was going to take 5 or 10 years to get on board with this. No, you've got 24 hours. Let's go.
Yep.
And
exactly.
There's this really interesting study of behavior paths that they did in the UK. I'm forgetting where I read it now. But basically, they studied people's movement patterns through the city. And there was a closure of some major metro station, right? So everyone adjusts their commute based on, they can't take the metro they usually take. And then eventually the metro gets fixed. They open it back up again. And they look at people's commute patterns. And 90% of people go back to their original commute. But 10% of people stick with the new commute. Like, they basically found that for however many months or years they'd been taking a suboptimal route, they just never knew it because they never tried, right? So I don't think, some people are saying, there's never going to be any in-person anything again. I don't think that's true. Some things will come back in person. But a portion of the people who said, I've had to do things online, a portion of those people will say, I liked it, I'm going to stay this way. And I think it's going to be a lot more than 10%. So the landscape is seeing a real boom right now. And it's a very good time to take your expertise online, either as a new initiative that you're pursuing or as a supplement to your business so that there is a hedge.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so on that note then, let's talk about, and I already put the link in our chat, let's talk about how Teach Your Gift can help people do that.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So Teach Your Gift is my brand new book. The timing could not be better. It went to print. I'll tell you the story, actually. It went to print the day that everything was like shutting down, right? Wow. So it was like March 13th. The whole world is shutting down. We had like a big event that we were like, okay, we have 3 weeks notice to take it virtual. I get to the end of this long day and I'm like, okay, my book is going to print. Do I need to like write an extra chapter or something? It's like, I really don't want to. I'm tired, but do I need to just stay up till 2 in the morning and do this? And I looked through the book and I was like, no, everything in here is still super, super relevant. So the reason I wrote the book is that I've been having a lot of conversations lately with very serious people, very smart people, the kind of people you meet at the Global TED Conference or at the Thinkers 50 Summit or places like that. They're saying, I'm thinking about an online course. And I'd say, great, tell me more about what you're thinking. And they'll tell me their plan. And it becomes very apparent that they're working from a playbook that's like 5 years out of date. Because it's not 2015 anymore. It's not 2010. The world has changed. And so I wrote this book to really bring everyone up to speed. This is what the world looks like for online courses right now. This is what the opportunities look like right now. This is what's working. This is how to capitalize on it. So that's why I wrote the book. And as it says on the screen, free instant access. The book is on sale on Amazon. You can go and someone told me the best way to buy books is in bulk. So you're welcome to do that. But you can also just go to the link that Jay is sharing, and we're giving the book away digitally for free for the next few days. And if you get the digital copy, on the inside, there's a page where you can get more bonuses, and you can also get the audiobook for free.
Oh, perfect. Because honest goodness, I love the audio version of books. It makes a monumental difference for me. Okay, so and we have maybe like 4 minutes left, something like that, Danny. What if somebody's on the fence? Because I hear people talking about doing their course and those sorts of things, and sometimes it just really seems like people get stuck. And I don't know if that's cognitively, emotionally, what that process is. But if you were to share like the quick start version of get something out to test, what would your best advice be? So get the book and read all of it and get the context, but now it's time to get your ass moving. What should we be doing?
Well, the answer to your question is basically chapters 3 and 4 of the book. Okay. But the very short answer is figure out what people want from you, what you have, what information, knowledge you have that would be valuable to people. Don't worry about getting it 100% right. This is your best guess. It's an educated guess, right? Ask yourself, what is the transformation? What is the minimum it will take to deliver it? Don't obsess about creating a long, detailed plan of everything. Just create a one-pager of this is what I think it's going to look like, and start shopping it around. Right. The best way to validate that people actually want what you're selling is the moment they give you money for it. Yes. And then you're going to work crazy hard for a few weeks to deliver it. And that's OK. Right. Remember that I'm not saying you should deliver a crappy or half-baked course. I am saying that you've spent the last 10 or 15 or 20 years developing the expertise that allows you to develop a really good course in a short amount of time. So if you don't have that expertise, don't create a course, right? The people who should be creating courses are real experts. But presuming you have real expertise, you can totally do this, and it can be quick.
And just on that note, I just want to share a story that, and this was before you and I actually met. So we had an interesting experience. And when I tell this story, people are always a little bit boggled by it. But I had this Mastermind training program that I trained all of my coaches, my facilitators, my trainers, all went through this to deliver the masterminds that our personal development company had. And then I was at an event, and somebody was struggling with their mastermind. And I just said to him, like, look, I have this training manual that I think would help. And if you want it, you can just have it for free. And so I gave that away. And then it was like, hey, wait a second. Could we give this away in a giveaway? Because this is a great resource. And I was like, no, I suppose. And by the way, all this time, I'm trying to sell personal development online, and I'm failing miserably. And we basically did a giveaway in like 5 days, got 3,000 opt-ins. And it was like, holy crap, I guess we should do something with this. So I did exactly what you said. I mapped a one-pager. It's like there's 6 key pillars to this. We've been teaching it forever. And just to back that up, there's actually 4 key pillars that we were teaching. And then we added 2 for marketing in terms of how that's going to transpire. I did a sample webinar sent to everybody who downloaded and say, hey, do you want to, I'll teach you the next key things. And in the webinar, I said, look, I've been teaching this for 20 years, not online, all those sorts of things. But if you want, I will actually do the 6 training pillars. I will do all those sorts of things. And, I think this will sell for $2,000 when it's all done. But if you're interested, we'll sell it for $997. And we had a 43% conversion rate on 2 webinars, just with nothing but, those notes. And that gave birth to the Launch Your Mastermind 90-Day Bootcamp, which, has done, probably well over $6 million in a couple of years. So that, and people find that hard to believe, but exactly what you're saying. I was the expert at it. I'd been doing it for a quarter century before anyone else was frankly thinking about masterminds. And it was just the easiest thing to channel.
I love that story. And there's so many stories like that, because like fundamentally, and this is something I'm loving about the evolution of the industry, right? Like when I think back to the early days, a lot of the people who are interested in building online courses, they were opportunity seekers. They were like, how can I make lots of money in my pajamas on the beach? right? While I get, I don't know, Wi-Fi from the coconuts, right? That was the that was kind of the perspective. These days, the people I bump into who are interested in online courses, they're like, I've been in my field for decades. I'm really good at what I do. I have this unique intellectual property. I have an insight. I have a perspective. I want to bring it towards more people. And that's exactly who should be building online courses. They just need a playbook to do it right, that actually works today, not 5 years ago. And so that's what this is.
I love that. All right. So on that note, then let's get all of these with the opt-in up, get that added to the stream if I can. And I just want to say, number one, thank you for taking time to be here with us. Number two, anyone in the process of thinking about doing a course, and I know, quite frankly, there are probably another 100,000 people thinking about it today that weren't thinking about it just 8 weeks ago. The honest goodness truth is you want to do it right. And you want to do it with guidance, and you want to do it with somebody who helped thousands of people, not themselves, their mom and their two sisters. You want to do it as properly as you can with the testing procedures, with the context and the structure. And there's nobody better than Danny to do that. So I really want you to download the book. I want you to dive on in, follow Danny. He's going to have some additional pieces that are going to come your way to serve and support you in that process, and dive into the book as quickly as you possibly can. So last word to you, Danny. Anything else you want them to know or to think about while they're considering downloading and creating their own course?
Just that, honestly, there's never been a better time in history than now to be jumping in on this opportunity. The industry is mature enough that a lot of people are interested in looking for online courses. The market is substantial. All of a sudden, everyone is sitting at home thinking, is there a course I can take about fill in the blank? And fill in the blank includes your topic. So now it really is the time. And Jay, I want to say to you, thank you so much for, your friendship over the years and for having me on today. It's been a ton of fun, and I'm grateful.
My absolute pleasure. And we will be sharing this around like mad, doing our very best to serve and support people to get the data that they need. So thank you, Danny. I appreciate it. All right, gang, I got just a couple of final announcements that I want to remind you of. So first and foremost, in terms of JVology and what we're up to there, we have, number one, a 5-day challenge that is starting on Monday. And frankly, we just did it about a month ago. But 1,100 people went through it, and it was like, we got to do that again. I want to do it again. So we caved, and in the space of the pandemic, we're doing it again. So if you're interested in the 5-day challenge, which is called the JV Jumpstart, 5 JV partners in 5 days, you go to this link, www.jvology.com. It's better with a C instead of a V.com/jumpstart. So you can dive in and find out more about what we do. It's 5 days of training that, by the way, if you're interested in a course, as you should be with Danny, and you are interested in distributing the course, these two things work together perfectly. The fundamentals of joint ventures so that you can distribute the course you build using Danny's process and materials. So dive on in and come check it out. And of course, there's also JVology Live, which is happening from the comfort of your own home, June 11th is the pre-event Mastermind and VIP, and then the 12th to the 14th is the full-on details and the full-on process. And by the way, we have incredible experience planned for you. Number one, you're going to meet hundreds of other JV partners. We have an incredible goodie box called the Partner Creation Pack that gets shipped out ahead of time. We have a 14-day ramp-up email course that's going to have you diving into that community in a powerful way. And we are going to, if you choose to go VIP, quite literally JV broker for you and introduce you to 5 people who are on your upstream and your downstream. So if you're interested in any of those things, please come join us. And let me get Danny's book up again. I want to get that back up. And be sure that you go and get this book, because here's one of the things that happens time and time again at JVology Live. It's like, I totally want a joint venture, but now I need some sort of a digital product to make that easy and to have something that's going to open the door. So these two things could not be more perfect together. Get Danny's stuff, check us out, come do the challenge, and we're going to have a ton of fun. And on that note, Danny, thank you so much for being here. I truly, deeply appreciate you, and good luck on the distribution of the book. We'll do everything we can for you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.